That's the issue, is it? We talked about that 20, just over 20 Ks once they stop the proper part of the descent, which is very close now, before we begin the final climb to Plateau de Bay. For the first time in 9 years on the Tour. It's a breakaway won by Joaquim Purito Rodriguez back then. A breakaway of 5 strong riders here. Spaniard in it in Mas, an Australian, Hindley. From Ecuador, it's Carapaz. The Norwegian is Johannesson. And from Belgium, Duplus. 2:23 in front of a yellow jersey group that is looking to fight its own battles. Average speed today well above 38 kilometers per hour.
Which, for the elevation gain that they've had today, over 38k an hour, is just smoking fast. I mean, absolutely ripping.
Well, you can always tell, can't you, if you look at what the organisers expected. They give you 3 times, don't they, in the road book. They give you what they expect to be the slowest predicted time, the average predicted time, and the fastest predicted time. We are well in front of the fastest predicted time at the moment, which was 37 k's an hour, by the way.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. I mean, the average speed will come to, well, it's going up right now. It'll come down a little bit going up Plateau de Bay, but you know, even still, a mountain stage ridden, at 37k an hour with this much elevation gain is, what, Danny? What was it? 4,800? Yeah. 4,800 meters today. I mean, that's. But anyway, that's. It's, you know, that this is how racing has really evolved, in that the race goes from the start line to the finish line now. On a mountain stage like this in the past, you would have had much bigger lulls in the action. And now, you know, the riders having changed nutritional strategies, having changed training strategies, whatever else, it's not that the peaks are necessarily any faster. The peak speeds aren't any different than they were a while ago.
There's just no peaks anymore.
Exactly. It's just, it is one big plateau. They're just, you know, they're just going all day long.
Just one big flat line, but really high up the graph.
Yeah. And that's the way all the stages have been. I mean, minus a few, but for the most part, that's the way most.
Do you find that a lot being down to the new science of nutrition, the amount of carbohydrate riders are able to consume and their system able to assimilate?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference. I mean, there's a few, but aerodynamics being one, nutrition being the real big one.
Just on that front as well, Jonathan, do you think that television might have influenced that? And I've heard it in some quarters, people saying, well, they race all day now because it's on all day. But I guess that came in before this latest nutritional revolution, which was the last 2 or 3
No, but it's
seasons.
definitely, there's an influence there. I mean, I can remember, you know, in my era of racing, especially in Spain, no one would race until the television helicopter showed up, because it was like, well, okay, you know, listen, we're here to give our sponsors value, so what's this? So we'd just be riding along at 32k an hour for 4 hours, and then all of a sudden the television helicopters would drop in, and boom, we'd be going 60k an hour. And nowadays, since the races are televised from start to finish, the races go from start to finish. So, I mean, sure, you know, you look at the aerodynamics part of it. Well, you know, why does that affect this? I mean, obviously they can go faster, but what they can, more than anything else, they can go faster in front, because as you make the rider and bike and that unit more and more aerodynamic, the drafting effect behind becomes less and less and less and less. So there's more and more incentive to be out front early. You know, it's not, the drafting effect just isn't as great as it was 10, 20 years ago. Then you've got, you know, the fact that these guys can consume 120 grams of carbohydrate per hour, which again, 10, 20 years ago, if you tried to do that, the only race you'd be winning is the one to the bathroom. So, you know, there have been a lot of these evolutions, and obviously now it's incentivized to go fast from start to finish.
We talked about changing cameras. The revolution has been televised, and we're into the final 36.5 kilometers of today's latest installment of fast and furious racing at the Tour de France. 2:28 is the gap between the 5 riders at the front and the group that's around 15 to 20 riders strong in the yellow jersey group. 26 minutes to the green jersey. 35 minutes now. Still with a long way to go to the final group on the road, including Mark Cavendish and a few other sprinters too. It's going to be touch and go for the time cut. On our way to the final climb of the day now. Plateau de Bay. I said early on, I'll repeat this for the benefit of those who weren't watching all day long, but the first time this climb was used was the last time the rider, or any rider, did a Giro Tour double. The winner on that day was the rider who pulled off that feat, Marco Pantani. The latest to attempt it is Tadej Pogacar. We see him raising his arms again. Or can it be Vingegaard to hit back? Will we see another scenario? Is there an opportunity for this breakaway? Plenty of questions, all answers to be given. And if it's anything like what we've seen, not just at this tour, but in the last few, it will be entertaining. And we're about to welcome back our television viewers for the grand show to begin. Welcome back, everybody. It's a big day in France. It's the National Day. But the French riders have fallen away from this breakaway that's trying to win the stage of the Tour. The stage with the most climbing. Almost 5,000 meters. Starting in Loudonvielle and heading up to the Plateau de Bay. We're in the beautiful Pyrenees. It is a perfect Pyrenean picture today. The sun's out, mountains in the background, a great bike race on our screens, and with De Plus, Hindley, Carapaz, Mas and Johannesson all in the mix. 2 minutes 29 in front of a group that did contain this man, Jakob Fuglsang, a moment ago. The group does contain the top three in the GC. Of course, they are Pogacar, the leader. Vingegaard at 1:57, lost momentum yesterday, but is trying to wrestle it back today with his team, who have ridden all day long. Remco Evenepoel, don't forget about him. He's at 2:22, of course. He's right up there in the mix. He sits ready and waiting. Wilco Kelderman's been riding for a long time. If you're looking for the main actors today, there is Vingegaard, who's in the polka dot jersey. He's looking after the King of the Mountains prize for Tadej Pogacar, who of course sits in yellow yet again for the 32nd time this year, leading a Grand Tour. There's Remco Evenepoel, the best young rider, also in this group.
He looks relaxed. I mean, he's chilling like a villain.
Well, he's got Landa with him, hasn't he?
But I mean, just, you know, Remco's usually sort of a pretty tightly wound guy, and that's probably what's been tough for him in 3-week tours. But if you look at his body language throughout this one, he seems much more relaxed. The other thing I'm really,
that he's matured a little, don't you? I mean, if you look at the way he rode in the Dauphiné, where he obviously wasn't quite at it on the mountain stages, he limited his losses, and he just seemed to be much more mature and in control of things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yesterday would be an example where, you know, he played to his strengths as opposed to his weaknesses, i.e. he didn't try to go with the explosive attacks. He just rode a very steady rhythm. He's, yeah, I mean, I would say he's definitely grown into the role of being a GC rider. So we'll see if that holds to the end of the week. But, I mean, it looks promising so far.
Pogacar on the radio. We saw a lot of riders getting as ready as they could there, Danny. Last bits of food before things got busy again, getting rid of some rubbish, nature breaks, all sorts of stuff hanging on, because the big moments are on their way.
Yeah, it seems like it's the calm before the storm now, doesn't it, for these riders behind. A little chat into the radio for Tadej Pogacar. And exactly like you said, just the last chance to get any fuel on board before this climb starts. Cooling down for Tadej Pogacar there, just putting the water over his head. Heat, we know, adds a huge amount to that accumulative fatigue for these riders. You can see them just sharing some bottles, their slushies, and all different ways in which to cool their cool body temperature down. Really is now getting ready for that final fight. The gap is very much reachable for the breakaway. I think Tadej Pogacar might ride a little bit more defensively today.
Look at this.
Yeah, good move this for as far as the break is concerned.
Yeah.
That Kelderman continues his work, but nobody's followed the wheel. I don't imagine anybody in that group is going to make a big effort to close it down, and it's going to take Kelderman more sitting up.
Right, and he's like,
Sitting up
oh, oops,
now.
now I got to wait. Yeah, no, this is good for the break. Let's keep doing this.
Jorgensen does follow.
Okay, Jorgensen now, but yeah, none of the others of the favourites and their domestiques. They'll say, no, Visma, this is your job, so we're not going to rectify this for you. And Kelderman has had to sit up, and you just see the ticker go up just a little bit for the breakaway. It's exactly what they need, but they need more than this.
Yeah, just disrupts that cohesion, doesn't it, of them riding in that kind of through and off formality at the front for the Visma Lita bike team.
Did
You
see
talked
that
about
Adam
it being
Yates not riding? Sorry, Rob. Just Adam Yates. He got up to the wheel, and then he was looked at. He just looked across at Jorgen and said, "Don't look at me."
Well, you talked about being the calm before the storm. In a minute, we're going to go to Anders Milker on the climb. He'll talk about how it is. And for now, I'm going to get out the way because it's Carlton Kirby who's going to come back in and take you to the finish today.
Thank you, Rob. What a dramatic day it's already proven to be. One of the toughest days of the Tour de France that I can remember, quite frankly. And it's been ridden with such purpose and cool control by UET Emirates and Jumbo Visma Lisa bike. Amazing.
I'm standing here at the hairpin with roughly 2 kilometers to today's finish line on Plateau de Bay. And if you, let me talk you through the finish of today. There's a lot of crowds here. They're talking in the background. I'm under pressure at the moment. But one interesting thing, as you can also see in the road book, you see at the profile, it's really steep. There are no resting parts for the first 10 kilometers. It's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11%. Fortunately for the riders, there are moments of shadow, but dear fans out there, if you're watching, be careful for the riders because they will seek into one of the sides where there are shadow. One interesting part is really sunny here. It's super hot, 26 degrees at the bottom, 30 degrees, and with 8 kilometers to go until 6 kilometers to go, there is fresh new tarmac, meaning it's of course nice for the riders, but in this hot, in this sun, it's going to be super, super warm. Finally, 2.5 kilometers to go. It kicks off, but look at the way that goes.
Well, it looks like a revolution.
The crowds are going to be amazing today.
It is Bastille Day after all. Well, we were looking at the front today. We had 4 members of the Republic who were up front, but no longer. We have Lawrence de Proust, Jai Hindley, Richard Carapaz, Enric Mas. We have Tobias Johannesson as well, who's battled to get back in here and may well prove to be very useful as we get ourselves to the foot of the big test today, Plateau de Bay. A mountain that has been variously described, but in the olden days, not very long ago, but between 1998 and 2007, they used to say if you win on this mountain, then you win the Tour. Let us see if indeed that is the case today. Dignitaries are here in force. We've got one of our own as well, Jonathan Vortis, who stays with us. JB, you've got a man up here. You've got a fabulous chance today. How much did he leave behind by having to bridge to this? You're going to tell us he's got every capability of going all the way, of course, but it must have irked him a bit. I'm sure you've been in touch with the team. What were they saying?
Yeah, I mean, that situation sort of developed at an odd moment. I could see that, that Red Bull, I mean, they as soon as they saw that there was a little bit of a gap, they just went flat out. And then the guys behind, who are all trying to save themselves for the climb, just kind of looked at each other.
Oh yeah, I don't have
unfortunately, Richard got caught behind.
I don't
that.
have the
It
game
definitely
on
hurt him.
there.
I mean, there's no doubt about that bridging across that hurt his legs. So that's not great, but I would say my bigger concern has to do with the time gap to the group behind. They need more time at the base of the climb if they're gonna eke their way in front of the favorites.
John, one last thought. Chateau de Miglos here looks like it needs a roof.
Yeah, many of the chateaux around here have fallen into disrepair. This was one of the dependencies of the Counts of Foix. We're in that region now, and in Aragon. And it was burnt down during the French Revolution in 1792 and has never been repaired.
So this is the French region of liver? Foix, right? No, sorry, bad joke.
No, not a bad joke.
Not a bad one.
Exactly the same pronunciation.
In fact, a few days ago, we were going through the foie gras region. I don't know whether you dared mention it, John.
No, I didn't. I always find it opens up a rather unnecessary can of worms.
It does. Well, there are other things to eat.
Or can of liver, as it were.
Well, today we've got a feast ahead of us. This final climb today could well define the race, Sean Kelly. Welcome back.
It certainly could, and it's been a real difficult day again. You know, the way they have been racing out front, we had a very strong group, and the peloton always riding here. And this team, Visma Lease Bike, you know, they have done a mountain of work today, and another big mountain to come, and it's going to be a real interesting one. Who is going to be the best here out of the GC men? Will we see Pogacar taking more time out of his challengers? Will we see Vingegaard, you know, hitting back with a big, heavy punch and taking time? That is the question here, and that is going to be the big one here. But out in the breakaway, unfortunately, yeah, the advantage is coming down a lot. And when you look at that strong breakaway they had, was 12 riders or something. But when you look at the names were there, and the team of Red Bull Bora, the way they blew it apart, you know, was it the best thing to do at that point so far out? Because it was a long ways to the finish. And you had riders there, you know, and teams with numbers of riders who are going to ride for their leaders or their possible stage winners. But unfortunately now, you know, these riders here, they're having to make a big effort here to get to the final climb, and that Plateau de Bay, like, it is a real animal of a climb. You know, 15.8 kilometers. This is going to be a very, you know, a major test for the guys that had to make so much of an effort here, because, you know, the guys here, they have to ride, where back in the peloton, if the big GC men go in the attack, they have been sitting in the peloton all day. They are going to be much fresher, and of course there are big talent as riders as well.
It is remarkable, Jonathan, that despite the difficulty of this race so far, so many riders believe that they can still get something out of, indeed, today. And the heart is being shown by De Plus, Hindley, Carapaz, your own man, Enric Mas, Tobias Johannesson, and the will to go for it today. I guess there's a rest day tomorrow, but I'm just full of admiration for the way the riders have taken on this day, which has been full on since the very beginning.
I mean, you have to try, right? I mean, ultimately, for a team like ours, to say, well, let's just wait until the last climb and then see how it goes against Tadej and Jonas, that is a sure way to lose. So if you want to develop a strategy that can actually win the race, however low that probability is, the first thing you have to do is get yourself out of the situation that you're drag racing those two guys up the Plateau de Bay. So, you know, a lot of times racing such an aggressive strategy, I mean, it clearly burns up your athletes. It's real stressful on the team. You waste a ton of energy because these breakaways do not go away cleanly. It's really tricky to get in there, and there's a ton of energy waste even to get the breakaway to form. But that's your only shot. So you've got to take it.
We are thinking that the cut-off point today might be around 48, 49 minutes. So they've still got, getting on for a 13-minute cushion. That's the Mark Cavendish group, of which there are 10, according to the Tour Race Centre. He has got Caseball and Alexei Lutsenko with him. Lutsenko will be a little bit of an engine room for that group. John Degenkolb, Arnaud Demer is there. Eekhoff is there as well from Team DSM Post NL. We have Gaviria, of course, Mark Cavendish. We saw them both suffering early on, including Devar, of course, as well. It looked very second-hand. Ballerini, Tyson, and Velton. So 10 riders who have to... Their goal today, Jonathan, is just to make it so that they can carry on with the rest of this race. Not least Mark, of course. We're the sprint day. the day after rest day, our next racing day.
Yeah, you know, this is a funny thing when you explain this to people who don't really follow cycling, and you say, well, you know, if you don't make the time cut, you don't get to finish the race. And to your average person who, you know, if you run a 5-hour marathon, you still finish the marathon. They didn't say, oh, sorry, you didn't make it within, you know, 20% of the winner, so you don't get to actually finish the marathon. It's a really foreign concept, but that is bike racing. That is a harsh reality of bike racing, is that there is a time limit enforced. And when they make it to the bottom of the climb, generally that group of Cavendish, if they ride well, will lose about 1 minute per kilometer. So it's going to be very tight for them.
It's a 16-kilometer long climb, and the gradients are extraordinarily punishing. We'll be explaining that to those who are just about to rejoin us from our cycling fraternity. 22.5 kilometers to go. Darasans or Ariège is where we are. And where is Mark Cavendish? He's in a group of 10, I'm afraid, who for the time being find themselves not cut adrift, not yet anyway, but they're at 36 minutes and 52. It's just readjusted on the Tour's official race centre. There are 10 riders there. He has got 2 teammates with him, with Caseball and also Alexei Lutsenko. But the big fear today is that if they can lose 1 minute per kilometre, there's a 16-kilometre climb up the Plateau de Bay. We're not going to be that far away for our breakaway to get there. And then, 37 minutes now in arrears, Mark Cavendish and the crew will arrive. Now, I've got to tell you, the double dip, they've just gone over the Col d'Agnès. They are now climbing again, I'm afraid, to try and save the day for themselves up the non-categorised Port de l'Airs. Once they get over the top of that, they can start the descent that we have been well used to and have already seen. So they're a long way back, Sean, and at 37 minutes, if you add on the 16 that you think is possible to lose on the final climb, they're in trouble.
They are in trouble, and you know, when you look at the group of Mark Cavendish, 10 men, there's a lot of valley road, as we've seen here with our leaders. That is a difficult one. If you have 25 riders in that group, 30 riders in the Gruppetto, as we call it, which is the group is totally behind, and they ride together, then you can conserve energy for the final climb. So it is going to be a real difficult one. And you know, Plateau de Bay, it's a real steep gradient, and the distance as well. It is going to be a one where, you know, they're going to struggle big time, because they are going to start feeling the fatigue of having to ride with only 10 men. So it's yeah, it's a real scary one for that group of Mark Cavendish and the other men in that group.
There are occasions where the commissaires step in and stretch the rules just a little bit, scoop them back out of the pond, I think is the expression, or something similar to it. But the Plateau de Bay is going to take about, Jonathan, 45 minutes to climb for the best.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, one thing just to say here, because I feel like it's almost been put in a little bit of a negative context that Cav might not make it in today. I mean, we'll see. I mean, the fact that he's decided to fight on after breaking the record for winning stages, to me, that's already incredibly impressive. I mean, he could have just stopped the next day and said, hey, you know, I broke the record, I'm going to go home and celebrate. The fact that he really honors the race and honors the tradition of the race, I think speaks volumes of his character.
Matteo Jorgensen getting a bike change, not really a convenient time for this to happen. Welcome back, everybody. Just going to see our map as Matteo Jorgensen just changes his bike momentarily. I wonder whether there's a gearing option that's been, or whether there was a technical fault. This is what we're dealing with. It's either red or black almost all the way up, as you can see. 9%, just around maxing at around about 9.5 in some points. However, on some of the hairpins that we've got plenty of them as we approach the ridge here. It does flatten out just a little bit. There may well be a whiff of a headwind on the final sector here, but really, Sean, there is no respite throughout the whole reach of this 16-kilometer climb.
No, it's all the way for the 16 kilometers. You know, it's red or black, and that just tells you the gradient. You know, it's very high gradients all the way, and yeah, it's just a monster, and it's going to be for everybody, the riders who are out in the front here, 2:45 of an advantage. The GC men, it's going to be a battle for them. It's also a battle for that riders are further back the road here and fighting to make it inside the time limit. So this is going to be a real difficult day for all.
It's a flat, high-paced section, as you can see, just for the time being. We're probably around, a couple of kilometres now to go until we actually get to our climb. The club racers trying to keep up. They usually last about 30 seconds. Meanwhile, the man in the polka dots today has his battle plan, Jonathan, to your mind, been a good one today for Visma Lease Bike to do much of the chase, much of the work.
Yeah, I'm not quite exactly sure, what I mean, obviously they think, well, okay, we can take this to line, and we want to get the bonus seconds, and the only way to do that is make sure that the break doesn't survive. I'd be surprised if that strategy works, but they're basically trying to out UAE. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out.
Sean, have they hurt themselves more than they're hurting Pogacar today?
Well, I don't think Pogacar's even in a little bit of trouble, but we won't know, the truth on that one until we're into the last kilometers of the race. But, I think for me, it's a little bit of a psychological move on Visma's part. Like, basically, they're saying we're going to make the team ride all day long because we believe in you so much, Jonas, right? And even if maybe technically that doesn't stand much of a chance of working, the psychological boost could actually be very effective. Like he's thinking, these guys have completely killed themselves for me all day long. I have to bring it home for them, and they believe in me so much. The management believes in me so much. I have to bring it home for them. So in that respect, could work.
Cicconi's been going strongly, Sean, over the last couple of days. He and Carlos Verona now just coming up and helping with a little bit of pacing.
Yes, well, he's having a real strong race here, and he's very much up in the GC. He's at 8th in the standings at just over the 9 minutes. So, he is going to defend that place. And we always talk about the top 5, the top 10, and for Little Trek, it will be an interesting one if he can maybe move up a bit in that classification or hold on to a place in the top 10. As we see Matteo Jorgensen coming back here after the bike change.
No panic there, Sean.
Well, a surprise that the team didn't just turn it off a little bit, because Kelderman keeps on riding on the front, and this man is trying to get back in here. Now, we haven't really seen, he's probably been in the cars and getting the drafting, so it's relatively easy for him to come back and get to the front here. But 240 at the moment. This is a one. And I don't think it's about the bonification of the finish. It's all about on this final climb here of this 16 kilometres. And, Vingegaard, is he going to be able to do the business here and take time from the yellow jersey, Tadej Pogacar? They must feel yes, and the tactic, the strategy going out must be just to make this race difficult and keep the pressure on all day, and that he will be able to do the business in the end. And we will see that now in this final climb here of 16 kilometres. But when you look at Pogacar yesterday, like, he was excellent, and you would expect him to be in the same shape today. So you just have to look at the previous day and you say, okay, Vingegaard was in a little bit of trouble. Normally, he's going to suffer a bit against the man he has to challenge, Pogacar, today, but it does change, and these big champions, they can have a little bit of an off day, then they can come back throwing heavyweight punches and reverse the situation the following day, and that is going to be the interesting one. Can Vingegaard really take time back out of Pogacar on this monstrous climb to the finish?
Richard Carapaz just getting some much needed ice for the back of his neck before the climb begins.
And here we go.
Welcome back, everybody. We are about to enter one of the mightiest tests of this year's Tour de France. It is the Plateau de Bay, a huge climb in terms of its magnified importance, coming as it does at the end of 2 hard weeks of racing. A rest day tomorrow. It's time, if you're playing poker, I guess, to go all in. Well, those out front that have set themselves this task have an advantage of 2 minutes and 34 over a raft of GC contenders that are determined to test themselves against each other. In so doing, they may well close the gap on those who are up the road. Laurens de Plus, Jai Hindley, Richard Carapaz, Enric Mas, and latterly joining them, Tobias Johannesson, who's got back on the flat section, which, of course, the likes of Pogacar and Vingegaard are still enduring for now. If you want endurance, think about Mark Cavendish and a group of 10 riders who sit at 38 minutes down. And if they are, as predicted, possibly going to lose up to 16 minutes more just on the final climb today, which our head of our race is already engaged with, then that could spell disaster. Moving towards the time cutoff. Personally speaking, I think they'll just make it. I certainly hope they do. I have to say that Mark Cavendish has been a master of that in the past, and he's got Alexei Litsenko, pace ball as well, to just help him drive across the valley. They are still descending to get down to that valley position. So it's getting on for 40 minutes down, and we'll keep an eye on that clock. I'm sure you will as well. Now, though, Sean, it's time to dig in. Enric Mas, he looked like he struggled yesterday. He's refound his mojo big time. He is in elevated company here, in an elevated position. What can he do?
Well, we will see now in the next 15.2 kilometres and who is going to be the best out of this group. With 2:26, I'm afraid for those guys that, you know, with this long climb, the steep gradient, no respite at all at any point during that 16 kilometres, it is going to be really difficult for those guys. And, you know, Enric Mas, we see him yesterday in difficulty, but that was in the group of the big favourites, and he knew, you know, he wasn't going to be up to the challenge there to take on those guys. In a breakaway, it's a different situation. When you look at the riders he's with, and when you look at the qualities of Enric Mas in the past, like, he's a super climber, but hasn't been performed as he would have liked to be in this tour and way down the GC. So now it's for all about a stage win. And if he can get a stage win, that will make up a lot for his disappointment in the general classification.
Look at those black sectors right at the very beginning of this climb. Of the first 5 kilometres, 4 of them are over 9%. It's a nightmare. Well, it'll be a dream scenario for somebody. This is, of course, the main chase coming in, detailed as the peloton, because there are riders all over these Pyrenean mountains. And Wilco Kelderman has done his fantastic job, and it is now at a close. Well, it's going pop for quite a few up here, Sean. The Jakob Fuglsang, nothing more for the day. Marc Soler has been a driving force for Tadej Pogacar. He's also suffering, I'm afraid. Ben Healy, almost the hero of the race so far. No wins for him just yet, despite all of his efforts. He's been in the service of Carapaz to slingshot him up the road. Others as well. Guillaume Martin just struggling here. Simon Yates, who had high hopes of being up towards the pointy end on a day such as this. In fact, from that particular group, he is still bouncing. 2 minutes and 1 now, and the clock is just absolutely tumbling as we start to pick it up, and Tadej Pogacar starts to just decide that maybe it's time for a show of strength. They've not been benign, Sean, but equally they've not been as aggressive as they have been, and of course he still has with him the master plan that is Adam Yates to deliver blows to the solar plexus like no other. Pogacar hanging on Jonas Vingegaard at the moment, and we're into the crowds. We're into the pointy end of this amazing day.
Yes, and we can see riders in difficulty. We can see Derek G there in difficulty already, and he's also, you know, in the 9th position at just over 9 minutes down the GC certification. And, you know, this is going to, I think, catch anybody that are, you know, suffering at this point as you go further up the climb. It is going to cause a lot of problems for the GC men, and I feel, you know, we will see some of the GC riders losing a lot of time here. The question is, we can see Matteo Jorgensen just pushing on here. It will be important how long he can keep it going, because we can see also Almeida there having difficulty. That just tells them UAE, you know, they haven't contributed anything today, and that just shows how much this is after sapping the energy of everybody.
Matteo Jorgensen, I'm not quite sure, Jonathan Wouters, whether that was a planned exchange of his bike. Did he have a technical, or has he changed the gearing just for this?
No, I think that was just a technical, but man, is he an impressive rider.
Phenomenal.
I mean, he's one of the strongest riders in the race, but obviously he's not riding his own race. He's riding it, you know, for Jonas, but you know, from a team manager perspective, what he's doing has been pretty incredible, and today even more so.
Well, Tadej Pogačar smashed the climbing record yesterday on our finale. Will records fall here as well? Big pickup by Jai Hindley, man who's, of course, dominated the Giro d'Italia in the past. Can he possibly spring something out of this? The man who chases onto his wheel is Tobias Johannesson. Something of a surprise after he was dropped a little bit earlier on in this race, got himself back in to this pointy end. Laurens de Plus just grinds into this as well, almost TTing himself back up. Mas looking like he may be a bit second-hand. He displays his fatigue on his face very easily, but Richard Carapaz looks cool as you like just for the time being. You feel like there's potential here. Coiled spring time and here he goes. It is indeed. There is that potential writ large. He's gone, and Mas suddenly, from looking like he was on a torture rack, goes with him. It's the pair of them duking it out for a stage victory here. Can they possibly hold on? The gap's come down, tumbled as you will, to just 89 seconds, 13.6 kilometers from home. A nice rhythm to be set here by Richard Carapaz. He can attack, he can mess with people's heads, he can change his pace almost at will, it seems. He's got more gears in his head than he has on the bike, and he makes them work for him. That's the kind of attitude and the kind of capability, Sean, that can deliver on a day like today.
Yes, well, they have to deliver, and they have to deliver early on this time, plus 13 kilometers to go here. And they know that this gap is coming down 1:27 back to the yellow jersey, and that is the concern. You could see, they're looking around here, who's going to do the pulling on the front. We see Hindley just putting in a little bit of a tester there to see what the reaction would be. Then Carapaz goes for it, and they're all concerned about the pace being set back in this group, as we can see more riders starting to lose ground here. Ciccone starting to lose. The GC men further down, Gal also from Decathlon, he's in difficulty, a brilliant climber, and that just tells Jorgensen. And we know, we've seen this year, like this guy, he's a huge talent. He's at the service of his leader here, Vingegaard, and he's doing a powerful performance.
He is, but when does Vingegaard go? That's the point. And looking behind, we got Pogačar as well, almost on a tow rope between the pair of them. Adam Yates now just starts to bounce up into position. He'll be offering a back wheel before you know it to Tadej Pogačar. Tadej has a habit of leading his own team up mountains and then calling on them to service wherever he requires them. Let's see, minute and 26 only. Fabulous drive by Richard Carapaz. He's testing those out front, Jonathan.
Yeah, I would say the guys out front need to stop playing with each other a little bit and really, I mean, they've just got to hold like a very high, fast rhythm. I mean, I love seeing Richard attack, and it looks very impressive when he does a big rhythm change like that. But if you really want to win, you kind of got to not worry about the other guys with you and just set a high, steady pace. That's the only chance these guys have. The more they mess around with each other, the less their chances are. So, even this, they keep looking back, and Mas just swung off. Like, this is garbage if you're trying to win the stage. It's just got to be steady, fast, and you kind of almost have to not worry about the other people in the breakaway at this point because the group behind is so tight.
One thing is they're testing each other out and they're spurring each other on as well, Sean. They're kind of reminding each other what is at stake today.
Well, I think they're faffing around too much here because,
I agree.
With 14 kilometers to go there, they started attacking each other, and you have to ride tempo. And then you pull over and you hope the other rider will do the same for a bit. Although, the drafting and the advantage in the wheel is not great on a climb, but still mentally, when you've a rider or 2 or 3 riders in front of you, you feel that you're gaining something here. And with the advantage they have, starting into the climb, whatever it was, around the minute and 30, it's just so tight here. They have to, really get working together. But Jonathan, as he agrees, it's not like in our day where you make agreement with the riders. They say, okay, we'll ride. It seems to be now, just the spur of the moment. Bang, I'll attack. Okay, the other bang over the top, and that's the way they ride. And going back in this race as well, the team of Red Bull, they had a great opportunity. I think they blew it here.
12.4 kilometres before we are indeed at our finale. I was just about to say, don't regard any of these riders as lesser favoured, because when you get to a position such as this, at the end of a day, Sean, when you've given so much, it's almost like an evening out. You have to almost disregard the differences between the riders historically, because it's about the now, isn't it, and how you've preserved yourself up to this point.
Well, when you're in a position like this, if you have 4 or 5 minutes an advantage, then you can play around a bit and throw in these teasers to see who is going to react, and you will get a picture who is feeling good, because they're the ones who will be onto your wheel immediately and start riding. But in this situation, yeah, it's a panic situation for the guys out in front, and they're hoping that this will be a stalemate back in the group of favourites, but I don't think we will see that. And with 12 kilometres to go, it's just way too far for those guys. 1:13 at the moment, back to the yellow jersey. It ain't going to happen for them today for the breakaway.
Ciccone is thinking about his top 10. He's also thinking about the wheel of Felix Gall at the moment. He's absolutely locked on it, as you can see. Meanwhile, out front, in the chase, I should say, still very much a great job being done here by Matteo Jorgensen. He is phenomenal. Just behind him, Jonas Vingegaard nursing the Pogodot jersey on behalf of Tadej Pogačar, who's still not mouth-breathing, apparently, Sean. He looks so relaxed at situations like this. And I have to say as well, Adam Yates, who's often hard to read, looks like he is waiting to be spurred on as well.
Yes, well, Tadej, we know you cannot just take from his visual looks. You have to just test him, and we did see Pogačar, in this tour he was waving the camera and everything was fine, and then further up the next climb he got into real difficulty. So you have to test him physically, and yeah, the question is who's going to give the big sucker punch first here. Will it be the yellow jersey? Will it be Vingegaard? Remco Evenepoel, let's not forget, he could just, well, if he's in good shape and he feels that, okay, I'll try, and maybe they might mark each other a bit and he can take some time back in the GC standings, that is a possibility. But yeah, we can see here it's still Jorgensen just, pounding away on the front here, and in the meantime the gap advantage to the leaders is coming down.
Remco Evenepoel, whenever he has a bad day, he bounces back usually. But that bad day by his own extraordinarily high standards. Remember in the Welter last year where he had an awful day, and then the next day comes back and wins with a phenomenal solo. He's got Mikel Landa with him as well, and I'm just wondering what indeed Remco can do. He actually looks at the moment like he is just, his mind is up the road, which means he's minded to do something very well. He could be indeed that hidden card here. Well, straight out and on the deck, starting to play the game. Enric Mas, he goes. Johannesson comes with him. 11.5 kilometres to go, and Richard Carapaz, no response from him just for the time being. Have they got the drive to get back over there? Sitting on the back wheel of Valence de Plus just for now. Jai Hindley is part of that chasing trio. It's a duo up the road. Any fears, Jonathan?
No, I mean, I would be more upset if I didn't think that this group from behind is going to take them back. I think, Richard, this is the point in the race where he is now paying for that effort where he had to bridge across earlier. It's not an immediate effect. It kind of just catches up with you slowly, and now we can see it's catching up with him.
Jonathan Ortis, team principal of EF Education Easy Post. Fabulous to have him along, of course, especially because Richard Carapaz has been, and indeed Healy have been such a fabulous part of this day. And here we go, kicking on, and said, see ya, I'm out of here. Makes you wonder about that deficit that was left behind when the big breakaway group fractured, and of course Richard Carapaz had to bridge over all by himself. Meanwhile, it's going to be a trio up front. He is, and it's got what, 57 seconds, Sean, back to the Maillot Jaune. It's only a minute. We've got 11 kilometres to go. The benchmark is that you give a minute per 10 kilometres. It's under that right now. Surely the stage win may well come from behind.
Well, it looks, it's going to come from behind unless they really start playing around behind. When Jorgensen finishes up his effort on the front here, who's going to take up the pace setting out of this group? That is the question, as we can see. But go and also in difficulty here. And just slowly, we're losing all these real talented climbers. We can see Rodriguez getting into a little bit of difficulty as well, losing a bit of ground here. And that tells the pace that's been set by Matteo Jorgensen. It is a real leg breaker for, excellent climbers, proven 3-week riders. He's doing an excellent job here. But yeah, up front, they're still starting, to continue on to attack each other. But I'm afraid, it's not going to happen. It's going to come out of this group, the stage winner here today. And it'll be interesting now to see how long more this man can continue on setting this infernal pace.
Well, we're waiting for Jonas to give him the moment, the sign that his job is now at an end. For the time being, he's still asking huge questions. The man is asking questions of himself here. It's Richard Carapaz, and he's decided the best way to help is to help yourself, and that's precisely what he's doing, leaving behind Tobias Johannesson, who instigated this latest move, followed by Enric Mas. But now Richard Carapaz is making a noise up front, and Jonathan Wouters, this must be a joy to you. I hope he, as a neutral, that he manages to hold on here.
Well, I think he's heard what Sean and I have been saying, and he's basically calling us out on the bluff, saying, that I'm going to hold this 41-second gap all
Jonas
the way.
comes round. Jonassen's done his job, and it's Tadej Pogačar who goes, and we're looking at Remco Evenepoel. Can he possibly hold on here? Adam Yates can't come and join the party. He's been there just in case, but quite frankly, the suitcase is now full. It's these two, and they have headed off up the road. This was the big battle plan by Jonas Vingegaard. It's been on our screens all day. Burn everybody down and hope that you don't burn yourself. And right now, goodness me, Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogačar, it's them again, Sean, mano a mano with Evenepoel just trying his best to hold on to their coattails. They've flown the coop here.
Yes, and not surprising, because the day they've been through, the pace being set by Jorgensen, we did see that there was a lot of the riders getting into difficulty, and when this man attacks, of course, then it's going to cause big problems, and the only one able to follow Vingegaard is Pogačar. We can see Remco Evenepoel there just doing his thing, setting his pace. They are not trying to follow immediately and get into his rhythm, and it's going to be an interesting one. The man here in the polka dot jersey, will he be able to put this man in difficulty? We can see the way Pogačar is spinning the gear. Doesn't look like he's in difficulty at all, but you have to try.
Doesn't look like he's in difficulty at all. Takes a bottle. This will just be for cooling down, I imagine. Here we go. That's exactly right. The look over his shoulder over to the left was to see the camera bike, and to my mind, it was whether or not to take advantage of it as it was sailing by. There is Remco Evenepoel. He has not given up the ghost just yet. We still have some very steep sections to take, we remind you. And in fact, the next one comes with about 6.5 to 7 kilometers to go. So those who are up ahead of them by only a margin of 16 seconds, well, I think it is going to be this pair that hits that steep section first, and then you just watch. It's going to be a duke out between the pair of them, Sean. This is going to be a mighty sprint that I think everyone was hoping for.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a sprint, because Pogačar is getting, the easier ride here. Jonas has to continue on setting this pace, and he is hoping that he will put the yellow jersey in difficulty. For the moment, it doesn't look like that, but you just never know, and you have to continue on with your strategy, and that's what he's doing at the moment. But this is a long, long way. It's 10 kilometers out exactly when Jonas had to go in the attack. That's where you need good teammates, and we did see yesterday with UAE, they used the team to a point where Yates went up the road, and then Pogačar jumps across him and uses all his teammates to maximum. This is a big, big ask for Jonas Vingegaard to put this yellow jersey in difficulty.
Tobias Johannesson within their sights right now, and then only a matter of a couple of seconds or so, or a handful. There we are. As you see it, they come into view. Richard Carapaz and Enric Mas, and it is Jonas Vingegaard sporting the polka dots today on behalf of Tadej Pogačar, who just comes round. and the exhausted Tobias Johannesson just unable to cede that position quickly enough for Pogacar's liking. He goes through, and Vingegaard spears up through the centre, an undiminished pace, and it's only Richard Carapaz who can stay with them by the looks of things. Is Mas going to be able to hold on here as well with 9.3 to go? Evenepoel is at a 9-second margin, so still doggedly pursuing them, and there's the cooling duties. That's what the Soigneurs are on here, just handing out bottles. Get out of my way, says Richard Carapaz, turning Bidon into water pistol just to clear the road here, and clear minds are what you're going to need now, Sean, with the pair of them out and ready to pounce here on each other.
So you know, the Plateau de Bay actually flattens out a little bit here, and it's I just, to me, I got to take off here in a second, but damn, Richie, good job being able to hold the wheel of those two after you've been out front all day long. Like, that's, I mean, I don't know how long it'll last, but he definitely gets an extra scoop of ice cream tonight.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan Bottas, genius at work. He's the man whose battle plans have been writ large upon our screens many, many times. You'll be finding him in the breakaway with Orla shortly. Thank you, Jonathan. Meanwhile, back to this, our pleasure entirely. 8.9 kilometres from home, and it is starting, as always, Sean, to be graded. And what marks, indeed, are these guys making on each other, for goodness sake?
Well, they're the two big challengers to win this race, and that's what we're expecting on the big days. They were going to be the front of the race.
And here they are. Sean, we've seen this scenario so many times. It almost seems if it's going to be a finish, it's usually the pair of them. I don't know who's going to win today.
Well, it's an interesting one. We can see that Vingegaard, he's just set on pushing on this pace a long ways out from the finish at 10 kilometers to go on this very difficult climb. We know that Vingegaard, he likes the long climbs and just set that infernal pace, and that's what he's trying to do here. But will he put Pogacar in difficulty? It will take a number of kilometers more, and there is a lot more. 8.5 still to go, so we will wait and see. And looking at Pogacar here, he looks quite comfortable, but again, he's
interesting 5-minute power.
He just sits in the saddle when he's not really going for it, and he just turns the pedals. But he can get in difficulty. We've seen that before. It looks like he's okay, but then suddenly he does have to show weaknesses. Will he show that today? The next 8.3 kilometers will be the test.
Well, two riders like this, Vingegaard and Pogacar, come along once in a lifetime, and I'm sure that Remco Evenepoel is thinking, why did it have to be in my lifetime? They are here. They have distanced the young man who leads the Young Riders competition. And Vingegaard still looks nice and smooth, I must admit. Very hard to read in all circumstances. But right now, it's a big old book of results that they are writing here. Tadej Pogacar looks more pensive than I've seen him for a while, Sean. This is going to be fascinating. The terrain, you would think, better They spent the night in the cells and will be charged. 7.3 kilometres from home. They're absolutely locked together, Sean, but every time we go through some of the curves, it seems to be Vingegaard that's smoothest through them at the moment. I don't know whether I'm overreading it. We're going to find out, I guess.
Well, we will find out, and 7+ kilometres to go here. We could see an attack from the yellow jersey, Pogacar, because he is getting, the easier ride. Also, when you're sitting behind a rider, it gives you that mentality of sitting behind a rider for a long time. You're gaining the advantage, although the alignment doesn't help as much as on the flat. So we will have to wait and see. And I can't see, who is the smoothest here. I can't take anything from the pending style of the two riders here on our screens at the moment. It will be really when the attacks come. And will they make an attack? Will Pogacar, just sit on being and go right to the finish and just take the stage win and the balls that are available? I doubt that. I think he will try something because he knows this man is going to dig deep, and it depends on how good Vingegaard is today. He can continue on setting this infernal pace, but then he might have the yellow jersey suffering at this moment.
We shall see. Pogacar's first win, he finished in front of Vingegaard again for a while. Downhill run, took lots and lots of risk. Vingegaard just kept himself honest. We felt that he's had to work his way into this race, coming back as he does from horrendous injuries suffered in the Basque Country. A remarkable, refreshed approach to this race, where he has done everything to be in this position, and the hope was that he could grow into the race. He's certainly done that. Victorious, of course, on stage 11 as he was, levelling up the scores in terms of stage wins. Yesterday, Pogacar beat the field, but the nearest man to him, of course, was Jonas Vingegaard, and here they are again, going head-to-head with 6.4 kilometres to go on this 9% section. It's the last tough section that they'll have to deal with. It eases, but only down to 8% or so. They're at 10 at the moment. They're at maximum, Sean, as well, against each other here.
Yes,